Commanders, Jets, Sunday, 1 p.m., Christmas Eve, up in the Meadowlands. We've got your game preview with Ramy Lavi of the In-Flight Snack Podcast on the Bleav Network. Let's go.
Greetings and salutations, and welcome to Ref the District's game preview as the Washington Commanders head up to the Meadowlands to take on the New York Jets on Christmas Eve. I'm Nathan. That's the Stoner here from Ref the District here on the Bleav Network. We are presented to you by Bet Online. College playoffs right around the corner. Bowl games here for you. We've got games all throughout the Christmas weekend as well. And you need to do yourself a favor. If you are a betting person, head over to Bet Online. They've got all of your up-to-date wagering information on not just the NFL and college football, but the NBA, NHL, boxing, you name it, they've got it as if it comes to betting. And do yourself a favor and treat yourself this Christmas holiday by using the code Bleav, B-L-E-A-V, to get yourself a 50% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Bet Online, where the game starts. We here at Ref the District do remind you to bet responsibly as well. Currently, the Washington Commanders are 3-point underdogs to the lowly Jets, Stoner. And this is a game where it is going to be, I think, probably not what people expect, right? It's supposed to be a low-scoring game because the Jets offense can't move the ball. They're the 32nd ranked offense, and the Washington has the 32nd ranked defense, so we don't know what's going to happen that. The Jets are supposed to have a good defense, but at this point, neither team are actually any good. So I don't know what to make of this game. To me, it seems like Washington might be, even though they're technically underdogs, might be able to pull out a victory when it comes to this. But then the Jets are so bad that, and kind of, crazy, maybe Trevor Siemian does beat Washington. How do we make sense of this game?
You don't. You absolutely don't make sense of this game. It's either going to be one of those sort of games where each team has like 3 turnovers and a missed field goal and a safety and a botched punt and all that. It's just going to be one of those super ugly games, or it's going to be the exact opposite, and it's going to be a high-scoring shootout all the way to the fourth quarter, both teams just going up and down the field, the exact opposite of what you expect. It'll be an exciting game, and everybody will be talking about, hey, this is pretty awesome that these two tankers are actually out there beating each other up and having a good time and playing football. It's going to be one of those two. It's not going to be what you expect. I can promise you that.
Well, Washington's going to be missing a few pieces on their offensive line, and they're going up against kind of a really good interior defensive lineman. What do we think is going to happen with Nick Gates? Are we going to see the reason why he was benched, or can he maybe turn things around and keep Sam Howell upright?
Is that a rhetorical question? It sounds like a rhetorical question. There is no answer that I'm going to give you that's going to be satisfying. It's not going to be good, Nathan. You're going to have Gates. You're going to have Sadiq Charles over there, who's one game off of his injury, and you're going to have Cornelius Lucas. It just feels like it's going to be a sack fest. But that's the thing. That's what you expect, right? But expect the unexpected in this game, where Washington's going to completely shut down this defensive line, and Sam Howell's going to just have a clean pocket all night and throw for 350 against Sauce Gardner and Reed and just have a beautiful game. It's just going to be the unexpected.
I would love nothing more than to Sam Howell to have a beautiful game here against the Jets defense, because that is their highlight. And our highlight here today is having Rami Lavi from In-Flight Snack join us to talk about this tankathon. Which team actually wants to lose here? Let's get to Rami. All right. Hey, Rami, thanks for joining us here on Ref the District. I've enjoyed listening to your podcast because there's a lot of similarities between the Jets and the Commanders. Both teams kind of coming into the season with a lot of hope. Washington, of course, was because of a new owner and getting rid of the previous owner. And then for your Jets, it was Aaron Rodgers was going to be the savior of the season. You guys have this defense, and Aaron Rodgers was going to be the key piece to put you over the edge. And here we are. And both teams are eliminated from the playoffs. Aaron Rodgers didn't play a snap, and Washington started off 2-0 and then completely lost the rest of the season. And now we're all looking ready for the draft. What has it been like for you experiencing that as a fan of the Jets? Because we know what it feels like on our end for Washington.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. And hey, at least we both play well against Philly, right? We can always hang our hats on that. So,
That's right.
but yeah, I mean, it's same old. It's so funny because one of the first episodes I did was the day before, or the day it was announced that Aaron Rodgers was going to play in the final preseason game for the Jets. And I was just listening back to it a couple of days ago, and I had my dad on because he's a longtime Jets fan. And what's funny is my mom grew up in a suburb of DC and is actually formerly Redskins, but now a Commanders fan. So it's kind of funny. So we've seen it alongside each other this whole time, how it's always same old, right? And you know, for the Jets, we thought it would be different. We have Aaron Rodgers. It's a Hall of Fame quarterback. This was supposed to be different. For you guys, maybe you with an owner, you don't expect it to be different in year one. But how many times have we gone through the, you know, we have this is the quarterback of the future, and then it's not. You know, with you guys, you were really close. RG3 that was special, and you drafted two quarterbacks in that draft, right? You drafted Kirk Cousins too, who's a great quarterback elsewhere now. So it just seems like whatever happens, it's always going to go wrong. Whatever can go wrong will go wrong. And so the episode, going back to the conversation I had with my father essentially was, how is this going to get messed up? And listening back to it today was funny. It was like, we predicted it, and yet we still weren't prepared for it. You know, we predicted like, oh, this is somehow going to go poorly, but we can't like contain our excitement for Aaron Rodgers. Especially me and my father were both big Aaron Rodgers fans before he was a Jet. And so it was just kind of like, we can't contain our excitement. We know this is going to go wrong. We know we're going to be terribly disappointed in the end. And yet we're going all in, full head of steam. And that's how Jet fans are. And even, you know, go back last week, they win a game against Houston 30-6. And all of a sudden, Jet fans are back in. And I had fans sending me, and I love the community we've created with Bleav. And I have fans sending me pictures of them at tailgate parties down in Miami. So many Jet fans either live there or moved there or love to just go down there for a game, especially when it's cold up here in the winter. And these Jet fans are loyal. They're like, hey, if we win this week, Rodgers is coming back, you know, and then we could run the table. The Jet fans are as loyal as it gets, and it just sucks because every time we're disappointed in the end.
Before we get into sort of the specifics of the game itself, I want to ask about your perception of the head coach. From an outside perspective on our side, I like Robert Saleh. And even if I'm not saying his name properly, he seems like a guy that players want to play for. But this is year 3. Am I right? Is it year 2 or year 3?
Year 3. Yep.
It's year 3. You really haven't gotten kind of over that hump yet, even with all of the hope that you talked about. Is the honeymoon coming to an end?
The answer is more complicated because Aaron Rodgers went on Pat McAfee on Tuesday and said he thinks Robert Saleh is an excellent, I think was the word, head coach, and he's doing a great job. I personally disagree. I think Robert Saleh hasn't had a real chance. That's the thing that sucks. I don't think he's had a real opportunity to be a great head coach yet, because look at who his quarterbacks have been, right? He had 2 years of Zach Wilson, now Aaron Rodgers. He's dealt with so much garbage over the years, so much crap with just everything head to toe. But when you have guys in the locker room that last year it was backing Mike White over Zach Wilson, and this year it's liking certain social media posts, and Alan Lazard saying there's a lack of accountability, we're underprepared. There's a lack of accountability. That's the answer. There's something here that's missing. And so while I don't know if we really have the answer on whether or not Robert Saleh is a good coach, sometimes you don't get that answer. Sometimes you don't give yourself the opportunity to find out because you just can't overcome so many things. Now, that said, I think he'll be back because Rodgers is running the show. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I've come around about that really in the last couple of days. I don't really think it's a bad thing that you just handed the keys to Aaron Rodgers. I mean, when you bring in a Hall of Fame quarterback, sometimes that's what you have to do. Unfortunately for the Jets, and I'm kind of nervous of what happens beyond next year. Let's say Rodgers comes back next year and he's healthy, but there are still mistakes and still lack of accountability, and it clearly falls on the head coach. Then what? You're going to fire him, and now 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers is going to start with a new offensive coordinator and a new head coach. That's crazy to me. So if there was a time to change the regime, to me, it would be now. But I don't think it's going to happen.
I mean, you can always hire Hackett. He's already on the staff.
Oh my God!
You never know. He was
by the
so
way, that's going to be the other
Denver.
option. Yeah, that's the point. If they don't Right. So if they fire Saleh, the option's going to be Hackett. Like, I'm sitting here dreaming of a Jim Harbaugh, dreaming of even a Mike McCarthy if the Cowboys decide to go in a different direction. Aaron talks about him now in a lot more of a brighter light than he did towards the end in Green Bay. And sometimes Aaron does that where it's a little bit of revisionist history with him. I know my buddy Joe Beningo on WFAN, he always talks about Rex Ryan, kind of revisionist history too, because it fell apart with Rex Ryan a bunch of times at the end. And I love Rex, and Bleav loves Rex because Bleav was drafted by Rex, and my podcast is named for Rex, and all these things. But that was the greatest era of Jets football of my life. But still, that doesn't mean it was perfect. And now he's 10 years older and 10 years removed from coaching in the league. That doesn't mean it's going to be perfect again. So, Joe B, who has a friendly relationship with Robert Saleh and actually got him in trouble for airing his private text messages on WFAN, he's now calling for his job. So, we love soap opera. I think everyone likes Saleh as a person. I think the media loves Saleh. You don't see the media asking him questions about his job so much because I think he's created a really great relationship with everyone in the media. I think he gets kind of a pass almost from the media more than other coaches have because of what a actually good dude he is. But that doesn't mean he's a great head coach. I think he's a good defensive mind. I think the players love him. I think he is a leader of men. There's a certain accountability there that I see is missing with this team. And it's frustrating as a fan, and especially in New York sports, all we want to see. I mean, the Knicks fans are obsessed with the Knicks right now. This Knicks team is not going to make an NBA finals. They don't have an A-list superstar. We love Jalen Brunson and Emmanuel Quickley and guys who play hard, Josh Hart, and guys like Isaiah Hartenstein who get down there and are willing to do the dirty work, and it's not about themselves and it's about the team. And we love looking at a box score every morning after a game and saying 3 guys had 20 points and another 3 guys had 15, and that's how they got the win. That's what we want to see. We want to see teamwork and accountability. And when you see guys on the sideline pointing fingers and calling people out on social media, it's really frustrating.
Yeah, I was going to draw. There's a lot of parallels, it seems, between the two head coaches, minus the media thing. Not a lot of love for Ron Rivera and the media. He's had some issues with his interviews as of late. There's a lot of parallels between both teams. Currently set to pick 4 and 5. And I called this game the Tankathon. Where do you sit on a team tanking? Are you pro the Jets tanking for the rest of the season, get you a better draft pick, or do you want to see the Jets, perform well and win a few games here to close that out?
This year is different than past years. Obviously, in 2021, when they were trying to tank for Trevor Lawrence, failed epically. But when they were trying to tank, or was it 2020? I think it was 2020 actually. But they're trying to tank for Trevor Lawrence. And then they go into the LA and they win a game there with Frank Gore running all over them. And I mean, that year was awesome because I think when they were 0-8, I'm pretty sure it was, and they had the lead against, at the time, I think it was still maybe the Oakland Raiders. And they have the lead against the Raiders, and they call Greg Roman calls an all-out blitz at the end of the game with 0 seconds left. So that they throw the 60-yard touchdown to Henry Ruggs or whatever it was. And it was like, yes, we're tanking, and it's like the coaching staff is on board. We all want Trevor Lawrence. By the way, Trevor Lawrence hasn't been all that great. So it's not, I mean, he's better than Zach Wilson, don't get me wrong. But I mean, I don't know. It's like, that's not saying much. I'm better. Yeah, exactly. That's not a very high bar to clear. What I will say is when I turn the TV on Sunday, I can't root for my team to tank. Like if I want them to lose, I just can't watch, like, really, because I can't root for them to lose. This year's different in the sense that if the coaching staff is coming back, a lot of the same players are coming back. Aaron Rodgers is coming back. You have to build a winning culture. There's no use in getting a better draft pick because Rodgers doesn't want you to draft a quarterback anyway. Would I love Joe Alt? And he might not be there. The offensive lineman, right? The offensive tackle, he might not be there later than 4 or 5. Sure. Would I love one of these great wide receivers in the draft? Sure. Yeah. And maybe, we're fighting with Washington and some of the other teams, although I think a lot of teams at the top are going to end up drafting quarterbacks. It's a quarterback heavy draft. That's how it usually goes. So, yeah, I do understand the value in this draft, but I think it's so much more valuable. We have to see them end the season strong. Last year, they were 7-4, and they ended the season on a 6-game losing streak. That can't happen again. the alternative is they do lose out. And I think you really do have to start asking questions like, should this coaching staff stay in charge? Because look, they have 3 games that are all winnable and 2 of them that they're going to be favored in. They're favored against Washington. They're going to be favored the last week of the season against New England. They're not going to be favored on Thursday night in Cleveland. I get that. And Cleveland's been great with Joe Flacco, who was the quarterback for this team for part of last year, which is crazy and typical Jets, right? Typical Commanders, typical Jets, like we started the conversation with. So look, I can't root for them to lose, and I want them to win because I think they need to build some kind of momentum. And that's why I heard fans on WFAN and hosts on WFAN and fans around the city who are like, bring back Aaron Rodgers. If he's healthy enough to play, even if we're out of the playoffs, start building now. Start next year now. Start building the culture. Start showing us what it can be for next year. Now, he's not 100% healthy. It's not worth it. I get that. But I understand where people are coming from. It's you have to build a winning culture. You have to end the losing.
We are all in agreement on that. We are non-tankers here.
100%.
That's right. So let's get to this game specifically then. We're not going to really talk about the number 32 offense against the number 32 defense. All right, that's kind of
unmovable object versus what is it?
We talked about that earlier.
Movable object versus the stoppable force is what it is.
Right, exactly.
The worst matchup possible.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, but let's talk about this defense for the Jets, which really is the strong point. Why is it so strong? The Jets defense.
Quinnen Williams is the first answer I'll say every single time. That's and that's not just because he came on the show. First of all, the week he came on the show, he got an interception, his first of the year. I think it might have even been the first of his career. So I'll take credit right now.
Sure.
No, but Quinnen Williams is the defense starts and ends with him because in the system that they run with Jeff Ulbricht's defense, which he also deserves all the credit in the world, Jeff Ulbrich, and the detail that he has, the mindset that he instills in these players. And one of the things Quinnen Williams did say to us was, if they score 0, they can't win. We can't worry about the offense. And that's why this defense, even at times, it seemed like sometimes they've come close on the brink of breaking when you haven't gotten anything out of your offense for 3 years and you're playing this well on defense. I don't know how they haven't broken. And sometimes it seems like this year they were on the brink a couple of times against Miami, the Buffalo game, sure. But really, outside of that, they've been so solid and rock solid, even when they are carrying this team and the offense is doing nothing on the other side of the ball. And it starts with Quinnen Williams because he draws a double team and he gets pressure with the double team. And sometimes even with the triple team, he still gets pressure. And it allows the Jets to rush 3 and 4. They never blitz, rarely ever blitz. And they get pressure and they get home and they get sacks. Jermaine Johnson and Bryce Huff having incredible seasons off the edge. A lot of that has to do with Quinnen Williams. And then the guys they rotate next to Quinnen Williams, whether it's Quentin Jefferson, whether it's John Franklin Myers, all these guys rotating in on the defensive interior and then allowing the guys on the edge to get pressure really easily. And even Quinnen Williams sometimes getting sacks himself from the interior is incredible. And it makes everyone else's job easier. Now you could sit back in the zone. You can let 8 guys or 7 guys play in the secondary and confuse a quarterback. And the linebackers also, because of the way they play, are huge. The 2 middle linebackers, when you're talking about CJ Mosley and Quincy Williams, the brother of Quinnen, have been fantastic this year. And that's before you even talk about the 2 corners that everyone talks about, and DJ Reed and Sauce Gardner, who have been 2 of the best corners in the league. I know DJ Reed had a terrible week last week, and he said, hey, it was a good old-fashioned butt whooping. It happens sometimes. And look, I disagree with the philosophy at times of, not traveling corners and not double teaming sometimes and just staying in the same zone. And every time it was man defense. I mean, I don't know if you guys saw the clip of Mike McDaniel. He's like, oh, we got one-on-one on the outside with Waddle and Reed. It's going to be a 1-play touchdown here. And it was like, I see that, you know what I mean? So that sometimes frustrates me. That's the stubbornness of Robert Saleh afterwards, being like, yeah, that's our system, so we're not going to change it. Sometimes you have to make adjustments in game. But again, I think this defense is special really because of those 3 levels and the safeties with Jordan Whitehead and those guys. Like there is no weak link on this defense. You would have told me that it was probably the interior linebacker, CJ Mosley getting a year older. Quincy Williams wasn't that great last year. And now these guys are as good as anyone. The defensive line is as good as anyone. The edge rushers, I hope they find a way to keep Bryce Huff. Jermaine Johnson took a massive step this year. And he credits a lot of that to Quinnen Williams helping him as well. I can't find a weakness on this defense outside of maybe sometimes the scheme.
Commanders aren't scoring, Nathan.
Nope, doesn't sound good for the Commanders there.
Well,
but
they'll have a lot of short fields though, right? I mean, that's good for them. And then there might be like 12 sacks in this game though. With how many sacks the Commanders take, I saw at some point. I think 11 games in, they had set the record already for sacks in a season. Is that correct?
We're on
Sam
pace.
Howell was on record for more than 100 sacks in a 16-game season. Not even needing that 17th game to crack the 3 digits. Things have been better for Washington, although unfortunately for us, Nick Gates is going to replace Tyler Larson at center. He was one of the bad things in the center, so expect a good day on the interior defensive line for your Jets. Now, thankfully, if it is a low-scoring game, the Jets' offense is so pitiful. They'll be starting Trevor Siemian there. You talked with Bleav on the in-flight snack about sometimes the lack of effort there. You have a stud wide receiver. You just don't have a QB who can get it to them, and you've got some decent talent on the line. Why is the offense just not getting moving? I mean, they're worse than Washington, who's been shellacked 4 or 5 games this season.
Again, it comes back to adjustments. That was, I think, the first failure. Was they built an Aaron Rodgers offense. Aaron Rodgers, when he gets to the line, he doesn't want movement. He doesn't want guys in motion. He wants everything to be concealed because he sees the field better than anyone else in the league. And we know this with drawing guys offside. We know this with how he gets 12 men on the field constantly. All these things that make Aaron Rodgers great would make anyone else fail in that offense because you couldn't even ask Russell Wilson to do it last year, obviously with Nate Hackett in Denver. So when you're asking Zach Wilson now to go into Dallas, because essentially that's his first game, right? He comes in the game, obviously in Buffalo, plays most of that game. They find a way to win. I mean, that throw to Garrett Wilson is an awful throw, and Garrett Wilson makes an unbelievable catch for the end zone. I think like Joe Buck's emotion on that call was heightened because everyone's emotion from that game was heightened. After I watching the game, I was just like tense and like just kind of had that lump in my throat where it's like, oh my, I can't believe this. You're still, and then, it seems like, hey, wait, something's actually happening here. They scored a touchdown to cut the Buffalo lead. So that's besides the point, but that was an incredible catch by Garrett Wilson. And then you go into Dallas and you see them trying to run the Aaron Rodgers offense. And it's like, wait, you now know Rodgers is out for the year. It's time to implement a different offense. Zach Wilson can't do this. And sometimes when I watch Miami's offense, it's like, I could stand in there and make those throws. Like it's so simple. Like it's a one. And by the way, and when they move off, when you press their receivers and you disrupt the timing, all of a sudden it's not a 1-2-3 read offense. All of a sudden it looks completely different, right? It's such a simple where we're going to move a couple guys in motion so you know exactly what's coming. Everyone's in motion. The defense is confused. The offense knows exactly what's happening, and they're in control the entire time. Meanwhile, it took the Jets like 6 weeks to even start to implement some stuff that would work for Zach Wilson, some bootlegs, things like that. And by the time that happened, the Jets are now on their 12th different iteration of the offensive line. So they've had, so many injuries up there. And then Allen Lazard looks like he's just given up. I mean, he was a healthy scratch a few weeks ago. The guy, I've never seen a more passive wide receiver in my life. Never fights for a ball in his life. I mean, every time he's just waiting for it to come to him. And we've had a few plays this year where the quarterback actually has made good throws and he's just waiting back on it. And then the biggest issue, and this is always going to be the biggest issue, is the quarterback. At the end of the day, the quarterback's not good. I know Zach Wilson is super talented and it sucks, but he doesn't have it between the ears to be an NFL quarterback. Sometimes you just can't see it, whether he's stressed, whether it's just too much damage been done in his first 3 years of his career. And Trevor Siemian looks awful. And earlier in the year, I was like, I mean, Trevor Siemian's had success in the NFL. I don't understand. And then I watch him. He's missing throws that nobody misses. So maybe he just is out of practice and he hasn't done it in a while. But, they signed Brett Rippon after they have Tim Boyle. Tim Boyle, I mean, me and Bleav laughed about his college stats. And it's like, how does he have a job? Now he has another job. Didn't someone I think Houston just picked him up or something. So like, it's unbelievable to me that this guy keeps getting jobs, but he's terrible too. So I don't even, again, it's a combination, but I think the scheme was made for Aaron Rodgers. And not only do you not have Aaron Rodgers, you don't even have any decent quarterback, and then 12 different offensive lines.
Just re-sign Mark Sanchez. I'm sure he's the answer to all the problems for the Jets.
Oh my God. If it's literally, you think about anyone, it's like, just get anyone. And then it's like, Tim Boyle, anyone but him. Trevor Siemian, anyone but him. You know what I mean? Like all the options they've given us, it feels like we're kind of options that wouldn't interfere with an Aaron Rodgers comeback. And that's kind of a weird way to operate. And it was kind of like they punted on the season. And that's really frustrating as a fan, as a season ticket holder, as someone who is highly invested both financially and emotionally in this team. It sucks to be like, wait, you punted on the season, so where's my refund? You know what I mean? Like, but that's how they punted. They really did.
Well,
All right,
hopefully
Rami.
they do not to up the season tickets the way
they
they
already
did here in Washington. Did they?
They already did.
They always do,
Yeah.
man. Come on.
And they moved up the
imagine
deadline.
losing so bad and they up it. They waited, at least in Washington, they waited until the bye week to mention it because they lost really bad before the bye week. And I imagine that's when they were going to tell people, hey, we're going to up it by some people like 40%. But they waited until the bye week.
So it wasn't that. It was like 5-10%. And they also moved up the deadline to re-up because last year, right, they were 7-4 when they raised the ticket prices. They were 7-4 last year, but then the deadline wasn't to re-up for your season tickets wasn't until February. So some people saw the raised prices and how the season ended with the 6-game losing streak, and then by the time February came around, they had canceled. This year they moved it up. They said you had to already sign by November 15th. You had to put down a deposit for the following season. It's not like they were already bad. And when I called the ticket rep, he gave me coach speak, like it's a long season. I know there's been some highlights and some tough time. Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And that's, by the way, that's if they answer. I think you guys have a bad franchise.
Shout out to the Washington ticket reps because they do a fantastic job out here.
By the way, Washington. They do. I worked down in DC. I worked for the Ravens and Orioles on the Fan in Baltimore for a few years, and I got to know a couple of the DC reps. So yes, they do a great job down there. Some awesome people.
All right, Rami, good information, good insight into the Jets. But last question for you from me is, give me a game prediction. Give me a score. What's going to happen on Sunday?
I'm going to go. I'm going to say, this is tough. I'm going to say 11-6 Jets. The Jets get a safety, 3 field goals, and Washington gets a couple field goals. Actually, 11-9. I think I like Washington +3, so I have to stay consistent. So I'll say Washington gets 3 field goals, and it's 11-9.
Fair enough. We both have Washington winning this one. It's guaranteed either fan base is probably going to be a little upset come Christmas.
I think both could be upset at the end of this one.
Yeah, because either you want your team to lose to get the better draft pick, or you want them to win and they are going to lose either way. Neither team are good, but Rami, you were excellent here on Ref the District. You can check him out with Bleav Powell on the Bleav Network. In Flight Snack is the name of their podcast there. Game will be on Christmas Eve between the New York Jets and the Washington Commanders. I'm Nathan Perry Stoner down here from Ref the District. We're presented to you by Bet Online. And until next time,
Gonna go out and get that dub. Sorry, Rami.
Oh, good.
Be a fan.